Hello, I'm Tanvirul Ripon, the most controversial host in the East, and I'm with the Slavoj Zizek, Professor Slavoj Zizek, the most dangerous philosopher in the West. Slavoj, thank you for joining me in TICA.
It's an honor for me also. Thank you very much.
Please, may you tell me one thing? How do you enjoy your title, the most dangerous philosopher in the West?
I think it is a fake. It is a way to neutralize me, to present me as an interesting commodity, provocative, and so on. I think this is how Western society functions. The moment you get such a label, the implication is that maybe people look at you to get amused and so on, but they ignore what you are really trying to do. They ignore the basic message of your work. Because if you hear from someone that he is the most dangerous philosopher in the world, you are looking for some provocative statements, like that democracy is limited, that we cannot fully allow on Western type of democracy and so on. So the message is, the way I read it with such titles, you can look at him, you will be amused, provoked, but don't take it seriously.
Okay. Well, Slavoj, you said in a TV show, democracy needs to be reinvented. In electoral democracy or political democracy practices, people cannot choose their right leaders. When does the type of democracy ultimately fall, and how can democracy be reinvented?
It's a very difficult question. I don't have a simple answer. All I know is the following. First, when I talk about democracy, I don't mean some abstract notions of democracy means active people. I mean the specific form of Western multi-party liberal democracy. And I think this democracy is in a crisis in itself. I'm not just playing the multicultural game and claiming, okay, maybe it's good for Western Europe, but not for, I don't know which third world countries. No, I think even here, just two examples. Look what is happening in France, Spain, other Western Europe countries, where you have a vast social dissatisfaction. We had some years ago in France the Yellow Vests movement. It was a tremendous protest. And one must say the state administration, Macron, the president, was pretty open. He said, come, we will negotiate. But there was some radical discord. They couldn't find the same language. It was the same with Podemos in Spain. When they integrated politics, this explosive dimension disappeared there. Now just one ordinary, even very modest center leftist party. So there is, and the same, not to mention United States, where democracy obviously doesn't work. They are now approaching, for the time being, still cold, only ideological civil war. They cannot even unite about the rules of elections, who is the winner, and so on and so on. So this is my first of all. Something in today's society resists Western multi-party democracy. It cannot catch, it cannot integrate and deal with what people think is the core social problematic. So it's not just that we Europeans can patronize the third world, you should become more like us, become democratic. Our democracy is in a crisis. Second problem, we are now at a time when problems are not only global, but also long-term problems. And the difficulty with this multi-party democracy is you have some elections every 4 years, in many countries every 2 years, and so on. And this forum renders impossible long-term planning. Okay, I'm not pro-Chinese, but at least they have one big advantage. Because they don't have to worry who will be elected, really. They can afford planning till 2050 at least. And this gives a totally different perspective to those in power. You can calmly planning what will come, consequences of global warming, of its international situation. In Western democracy, you simply cannot afford this. It's one immediate topic. There may be an ecological crisis like too much heat or war with Ukraine, but it's crucial for us to see in the interconnection these catastrophes. For example, it's clear that war in Ukraine is also the war for who will control the best land in future.
Totally war of ego. I think it's totally war of ego. Ukraine and Russia war. I think it's a war of ego.
Yeah, and again, I'm not against democracy in the sense of voice of the people. And okay, my third argument, please don't take it as a totalitarian. I don't know how it is in your country, but the way I see it, especially in Western Europe, I will say something horrible. People don't really want to decide. If you live in a state like a typical Western European state of United States, you don't, till now, we will see what will be. You don't starve, you can afford a life of small satisfaction. Life is not great, but it's not too bad, you can just go. And people don't want to be bothered with big decisions.
Yes.
They want somehow to decide with elections, but basically it's horrible what I will say. They want to be told by some leader what really to do. They want a leader, and this is not a bad thing. We are lazy people, spontaneously. I am at least. Somebody, no, lazy for real thinking. You know what I mean? We need somebody to awaken us, as it were, to tell us, to make us aware of our problems. Most people are spontaneously deniers, denying COVID, denying global warming, if, of course, you are not in a mega catastrophe yourself. So for all these things, I think that I don't know how it will be done, but we need to invent new political forums which will be in contact with trends of what people actually worry about, but at the same time, which should be, sorry for using this term,
no problem,
aggressive in a good, authoritarian in a good sense, not in the sense putting people in prison and so on, but in a sense of trust, that you see they know what they are doing, that you see they have a vision. And I don't know again how it is in your country, but in Western Europe, look at what is happening now in United Kingdom. Now they got rid of Boris Johnson. What they get now, Liz Truss, is a mega catastrophe. My leftist friends already have a nostalgia for Boris Johnson. such a democracy where even in the time of crisis, everybody knows it's a time of crisis, you cannot elect a leader who stands for solution. You elect a leader who simply avoids the real problem. This is a catastrophe. Then it's not only, sorry, just this, it's not only the problem of democracy within a certain state. We need to invent not big international state, like the world as a big state. That would have meant terrible corruption, but forms of international cooperation which would have been much more obligatory. What do you do? For example, you in Bangladesh had that problem with immigrants from the north of Myanmar.
Yes, 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 yes. We have
Yeah,
refused.
forms of international cooperation so that somehow international community must be ready for such crisis, and I consider it unfair when the way I read Myanmar just let you, Bangladesh, already an overpopulated country, worry about it, do what you want. You were very civilized, you Bangladesh, because in other cases, such a solution would have led to war. You know, so what I mean is, can you even imagine solving the problem of mass migrations, which will develop with global warming? Not only problems of war, but mass migration, floods, too much water, at the same time not enough water, chaotic situations, pandemics. Pandemics absolutely need stronger international
So one
cooperation.
thing, may I add a question?
Yes.
It's like may we call it the democratic epidemic? If I include these questions, may we call it the
What do you mean
democratic
by this
epidemic?
term? I didn't quite get it. Democratic epidemic in the sense that they all
Yes,
want
like it's
democracy.
yeah, democracies die. I think democracy
Yeah,
crisis.
in this sense that it's dying. Yes, although it may appear that it's not dying, but even if it survives, I agree, it's getting more and more. And I'm talking about big Western countries, it's getting more and more irrelevant. You know how you see this depoliticization? That we have now in the West leaders who are even maybe not for the existing system such bad leaders. Like look at Emmanuel Macron in France. He just arrived from nowhere. He was a little bit known before, with no clear program, just kind of a moderate center, and swept away the traditional opposing parties, left socialists and right Republicans or whoever. So now the result is that instead of some normal political scene, moderate left, moderate right, and so on, we have big center, which is in some sense depoliticized and technocratic. They present themselves as we just want efficient government, and so that some critics are already talking of techno-populism. Usually people oppose populism, trying to arouse, to address masses and technocracy. Now these are technocratic populists. It's the same, but now it fell apart in Italy with Mario Draghi government, which disintegrated. All parties, from left to right, except the extreme right, Meloni, neo-fascists, opposed to him. And now they have elections where Meloni has the greatest chance to become prime minister. It's deep instability. So I think the time has come. I cannot speak for you, for us, developed countries, not to behave in this arrogant way, we looked at from Ukraine to Congo, Angola, and say, oh, you see, you still have a lot of work to do. You must catch us. You must. No, we have to change ourselves. We are in a crisis, maybe even more than
everybody in crisis. Everybody in crisis, actually.
But nonetheless, I agree with you. Saying that everybody is in crisis is a general structural feature, but it doesn't mean that we are all in the crisis in the same way. Those who were ruling till now the developed West, for them, crisis means that their model of global domination no longer works. So for them, the way out of the crisis is to persist in their old model of domination, which is why it is crucial today not to focus on direct modes of domination, like the old direct colonialism, but to focus on how one country can be exploited by others, can be de facto colonized, just with economic, financial measures, and so on and so on. I mean, I still think we live in colonialism, but I think that this colonialism cannot be grasped through these old categories. Arrogant colonial master is telling you what to do. One of the forms in some African countries is that international companies bribe the local elite. And the local elite oppresses people but profits from international capital. I know very well examples like Nigeria, even in the north, Algeria, or in the southwest of Africa, Angola. Angola is maybe the clearest example. You have 2-3% of the people who, according to some analysis, have the highest standard of living in the world. Prices are there in Luanda, capital, the highest, incredible luxury and so on. And you have 98% of the people who live in the same absolute poverty as when Angola was still Portuguese colony. And you know what's the key? What offers the key to this? The main money for Angola is oil and gas. You know what happened some already 10, 15 years ago? Somebody looked at the budget of Angola, state budget, and there it says Angola is getting per year from international oil drilling companies 8 billion. Then some whistleblower rendered public the documents of the main oil companies. From them, it was clear that they give to Angola every year $20 billion, which means that 8 billion simply disappear in the corrupted elite. And it's the same story in Zimbabwe, in Nigeria, and so on. This is a very tragic situation. I especially have sympathies for Africa because we have a formula. My friend Alain Badiou proposed it years ago. We have a formula that these are countries which are not blessed, but cursed from too much natural resources. Literally, if Congo, total tragedy of a country, if Congo were to be with less natural resources, all those precious metals, the life of the majority would have been much better probably there. Isn't this the madness of our world? where your natural wealth is a curse.
Yeah, we got it, we got it. And Slavoj, my next question is: you say the failed state to make their citizens refugees, and moreover, superpowers also state superpower state invested in failed states. Like if we say, or we can say Myanmar, and the failed states are turning the biggest industry without their citizens. Even the failed states make their citizens refugees, you said also, and failed states are created because of superpower states. So, what is your opinion on it, actually?
Uh, I totally agree with you that it's not just as the Western, some observers claim from their Western spectacles that there are states who are not simply well organized enough, or you can be overly racist, people are stupid there, they cannot run a state, and so on. No, when you have a failed state,
Yes.
maybe there are exceptions, but even there I am not sure. Like Somalia, the mess it is there, this may be one of the few examples, but even there I doubt, of a really simply failed state. But it's still because of the ethnic tensions and so on. But with many other like Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, usually mentioned as a failed state.
But in Central Asia and the Southeast Asia, the problem, the crisis, the facing the crisis.
There already you have to go into international political and economic relations. But look at Congo. It's at the same time a state which is best integrated into international commerce and exchange. It's not even operative as a one United States covered by the same laws and so on. The trick is that warlords, military commanders in different regions are making direct deals with international metal, gold, whatever dealers, and this is more profitable for them. They keep the profit, and for international dealers, you don't have to do with state democracy or organized state even, you break all the laws. So the first thing to ask for me when you have a failed state is, how is this state nonetheless fully integrated into international system, but integrated in such a way that being failed, lacking efficient central authority, and so on, profits international capitalism. So here I am, it may surprise some of my leftist friends, here I am for state in our, by this I mean in our complex civilization, so many things going on, so many needs, healthcare, education, and so on. All these things can be provided only by, I'm not saying dictatorial, but nonetheless well-organizing, well-functioning state. It's very fashionable today to be against the state. But I think all nations, ethnic groups need to be part of a well-functioning state.
Okay.
Again, my point, as you said about failed state, it's not that they are isolated. It's that, as a rule, they are well included into global market, but in a way which privileges just a small elite there and totally ignores a large majority which lives in poverty.
Yes, awesome. Slavoj, may you tell me shortly the world saw the communism helped various countries become independent. Now communism is invading countries, building colonies, and acting as a backbone for fascists to stay in power to torture the innocent people. How do you consider this matter?
I think that the sad paradox of communism, even if it had its achievements. You know, if you go to Cuba, they always tell you healthcare, education, whatsoever. But economically, as communism, it failed. And the sad thing is that, as if I read it correctly, your question indicates, the sad thing is that there were communism, but by communism, I mean now state power, which is still the Communist Party, where it really thrives is that communist power functions as a best protector of capitalist development. That's how I experience the situation from my friends. I get the news in China, for example, where, you know, the most dangerous thing almost that you can do there now is trying to organize trade unions who help workers outside of the official state trade unions, which are inefficient, totally subordinated to the party, and so on and so on. So isn't a paradox that China, a communist country, nominally, is most afraid of the independent workers' movement for protection of workers, and so on and so on. It's similar in Vietnam, and so on. So I think that the communism, then why do we need it at all? I see a need for communism because, for a very simple reason. Look at the problems at which we are today. Pandemics, global warming, wars, new forms of digital control, and so on and so on. We are here always, as I repeat, dealing with commons in the Marx sense of what should be accessible to all of us, what nobody should privatize, or where privatization should be under the strict public control. How to fight pandemic? You cannot leave it to the market. Yeah. There must be social organization to deal with it. How to deal with global warming? There must be mega organization and so on. Here, I think there is a need for new communism, and by this I simply mean liberal capitalism cannot deal with the problems we have now. And it's becoming clearer and clearer. Look now, with problems with gas from Russia, Western Europe is now forced to come together, although they resisted it till now, and to organize distribution of gas and especially electricity. The big next crisis in Europe is electricity, in what I cannot designate some kind of communist way. Different states coming together, coordinating production. It's no longer market. We were literally like making a test on ourselves. For a couple of days, they allowed freely floating electricity prices. You know that they went up 300% in a couple of days. Then the state had to intervene to bring them down, because they simply discovered that if electricity and energy supply is left to the market, this means such a crisis in economy, because companies will no longer be able to pay electricity bills. And never forget, with electricity supply, we always associate with, oh, will I get the reduction of electricity? But private consumers spend, I think, only about 15% of electricity. The big spenders is still big industry and so on. And you cannot solve this through the market.
As you say, the communism will be reborn because China enjoys communism funerals. When will communism be reborn?
I don't know, I know only this, that communism which will be reborn will be some kind of war communism. It will not be, unfortunately, first communism of abundance, like, no, it will be the way you have, communism will mean the way you socialize production, put it, production, agriculture, under some kind of social control in states of emergency, in catastrophic conditions like war, natural disasters, and so on. This will be communism that will be needed. I'm not dreaming about the old idea of communism.
Slavoj, how can be artificial intelligence destroy the future of humans, and will it pose a threat to human existence? Please make just 1 minute answer, please.
I am very much a pessimist here, in the sense that I would like to use here this formula that we have in Europe. I don't know how it is with you, of denial. This I know very well, but you may rationally know something, but subjectively, in your emotional stance, you are ready to ignore it. I think that the majority of the people, although we hear all the time about impending catastrophe and so on, still don't really take it seriously.
Okay.
We have, even in Europe, around 50%, if not more, of people are pandemic deniers, they are global warming deniers, and so on and so on. And I think this is not just a phenomenon of human stupidity. It is how capitalism makes you work and think. Capitalism is such a dynamic system, but in a bad sense. You have to be active all the time. Look at the new forms of capitalism, this precarious work. You never know how will your work go. You don't have permanent job. You are so much caught in permanent activity that this permanent activity itself makes the situation rigid. You cannot change things because you are working all the time within the existing system. You are not given the chance. And here comes again my pessimism. It is good that now also the developed West is feeling the crisis. War in Ukraine, global warming, political crisis in the United States. Because for us in the West, crisis was something that happened out there and you see it on TV screens. And now we are almost in that magic moment. I like movies, surrealist, where you see something on the screen, a monster, but then the monster steps from the screen into your reality.
Okay.
And this is, although it's very painful for us, more developed, this is maybe a good thing. Good thing in the sense that it will mobilize us more in the West. Until we in the West really feel the crisis, there is no way out. We will still treat you as, those crazy people who don't know how to organize their life, they are not able to rule, and so on and so on.
Got it. Thank you, Slavoj, for your valuable words and time.
Thanks very much to you.